In the windswept grasslands of southeast Texas, where oil refineries pierce the horizon like metallic monuments, lies a stretch of earth that has swallowed more secrets than it has ever revealed. For decades, this desolate expanse has drawn both predators and their prey into its embrace, becoming a graveyard where the missing find their final rest and the living lose their way forever. But first, subscribe to be notified about every new unexplained case. It was late October 1971 when the first body surfaced from the marsh near League City, Texas. The victim, a young woman whose identity would remain unknown for months, had been discovered by oil field workers checking pipeline integrity in the remote wetlands 30 miles southeast of Houston. The area, known locally as the Killing Fields, stretched across several square miles of coastal prairie where tall grass swayed endlessly above boggy soil that seemed to shift and breathe with each tide. Detective Sarah Morrison had worked homicide for Harris County for 8 years, but nothing had prepared her for the methodical precision of what she encountered that autumn morning. The victim's body showed signs of prolonged captivity, with rope marks on the wrists and ankles suggesting weeks of confinement. More disturbing were the peculiar burn marks along the spine, arranged in a pattern that seemed almost ritualistic in nature. The location itself defied conventional criminal logic. The dumping site sat nearly 2 miles from the nearest road, accessible only by traversing treacherous marshland that could swallow a person whole. Yet someone had carried this victim deep into the wilderness, suggesting either intimate knowledge of the terrain or something far more calculated than a crime of opportunity. Within 6 months, 2 more bodies emerged from the same general area. Both were young women, both showed similar signs of prolonged captivity, and both bore those same inexplicable burn marks. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore, yet the killer remained a phantom, leaving no forensic evidence beyond the bodies themselves. Local residents began reporting strange occurrences in the months following the discoveries. Several witnesses described seeing a tall, lanky figure moving through the marsh at twilight, always alone, always heading deeper into the wetlands. The man appeared to be middle-aged, with dark hair and a distinctive limping gait that suggested an old injury. He carried what looked like surveying equipment, though no legitimate survey work was being conducted in the area. The breakthrough came in spring 1972 when 17-year-old Laura Miller disappeared from a convenience store parking lot in League City. Her friend, who had been with her that evening, reported seeing Laura approach a white van after receiving what appeared to be directions from the driver. The van had Texas plates, but the witness could not recall the complete number. Laura's body was discovered 3 weeks later in the same marsh where the previous victims had been found. The condition of the remains suggested she had been held alive for most of that time, kept somewhere with access to basic food and water but little else. The burn marks were present, but this time they formed a more complex pattern that seemed to follow the curvature of the rib cage. Detective Morrison's investigation revealed that similar disappearances had been occurring throughout the region for years, dating back to the late 1960s. Young women would vanish from shopping centers, bus stops, and parking lots, often after being seen speaking to someone in a vehicle. The victims shared certain characteristics. All were between 15 and 25 years old, all had light brown or blonde hair, and all had been alone when they disappeared. The geographic pattern was equally disturbing. The disappearances formed a rough circle around League City, with the marsh serving as the center point. It was as if someone was systematically hunting within a predetermined territory, using the wetlands as both workshop and cemetery. In 1973, the investigation took an unexpected turn when construction workers building a new subdivision discovered a concrete bunker buried 8 feet underground, approximately 1 mile from the main dumping site. The structure was crude but functional, with reinforced walls and a ventilation system that suggested long-term use. Inside, investigators found chains, rope, and several personal items belonging to missing women. Most unsettling was a detailed map of the surrounding area, hand-drawn with remarkable accuracy, showing not only the locations where bodies had been found, but also marking dozens of other spots throughout the marsh. Each location was numbered and dated, creating a timeline that stretched back nearly a decade. The implications were staggering. If the map was accurate, the known victims represented only a fraction of the total. The bunker also contained a journal written in a precise, almost mechanical handwriting. The entries were brief and clinical, describing the capture and confinement of victims with the detached tone of a scientific observer. The author never identified himself, referring to his activities as research and to the victims as subjects. One entry, dated March 19, 1972, described the capture of a subject matching Laura Miller's description. The writer noted her exceptional resistance to conditioning and her persistent attempts to establish emotional connection. The final entry about this subject, dated 3 weeks later, consisted of a single line: "Research concluded." Subject archived. The journal revealed a methodical approach that went far beyond simple murder. The perpetrator was conducting some form of psychological experimentation, testing the limits of human endurance and the breakdown of personality under extreme stress. The burn marks, according to the entries, were part of a conditioning protocol designed to measure pain tolerance and behavioral modification. Detective Morrison's team expanded their search of the marsh, using the journal's map as a guide. Over the following months, they uncovered 17 additional burial sites, each containing the remains of young women who had disappeared over the past 5 years. The precision of the burials was remarkable. Each site was exactly 6 feet deep, oriented north to south, and marked with a small metal disc buried just below the surface. The metal discs bore numbers corresponding to the journal entries, but they also contained something else, a series of symbols that appeared to be some form of code or cipher. Linguistic experts brought in to examine the symbols could find no match in any known alphabet or symbolic system. The markings seemed to be entirely original, created specifically for this purpose. As the investigation continued, witnesses began coming forward with accounts of encounters with the mysterious figure in the marsh. A birdwatcher reported seeing the man emerging from the wetlands, carrying what appeared to be surveying equipment, but when approached, the figure had simply vanished back into the tall grass. A fisherman described finding fresh tire tracks leading to the water's edge, but the tracks ended abruptly, as if the vehicle had simply disappeared. The most disturbing account came from a teenage couple who had been exploring the area in late 1973. They reported encountering the man near one of the burial sites, but instead of fleeing, he had stood perfectly still and watched them. When they called out, asking if he needed help, he had responded by slowly raising his hand and pointing directly at them. The couple fled immediately, but both reported feeling as if they were being followed all the way back to their car. The investigation reached a critical juncture in early 1974 when DNA analysis of evidence from the bunker revealed traces of biological material from at least 30 different individuals. The implications were staggering. If the evidence was accurate, the known victims represented less than half of the total number of people who had been held in the underground chamber. More puzzling was the discovery of items that had no connection to any known missing persons cases. Personal effects, including jewelry, clothing, and identification documents, belonged to individuals who had never been reported missing. Some of the identification dated back to the early 1960s, suggesting the activities had been ongoing for more than a decade. The breakthrough that investigators had been hoping for came from an unexpected source. A former oil field worker contacted police, claiming to have information about the man in the marsh. The worker, who had been employed in the area during the early 1970s, described encountering someone matching the suspect's description on multiple occasions. The man had claimed to be conducting environmental surveys, but his equipment and behavior suggested something entirely different. According to the witness, the suspect had displayed an intimate knowledge of the marsh's geography, including areas that were virtually inaccessible to outsiders. He seemed to know the exact timing of the tides, the location of every solid path through the wetlands, and the patterns of local wildlife. This level of familiarity suggested either extensive study or long-term residence in the area. The witness also reported that the suspect had made cryptic references to completing the work and mentioned a timeline that extended several more years into the future. The implication was that the killings were part of a larger plan with specific goals and a predetermined endpoint. Despite the mounting evidence and numerous witness accounts, the suspect remained elusive. The investigation had produced a detailed profile, physical evidence, and even a location where he had conducted his activities, but the man himself seemed to exist only in the shadows of the marsh. The case took its most disturbing turn in late 1974 when the journal entries began appearing again. New pages were discovered at various locations throughout the marsh, left in places where investigators had been conducting searches. The entries describe their activities in detail, including their methods and findings. Someone was watching the investigation and documenting it with the same clinical precision that had characterized the original crimes. The new entries revealed that the suspect was not just aware of the police investigation, but was actively studying it. He had observed the search teams, noted their techniques, and even provided critiques of their methods. The tone remained detached and scientific, as if the entire investigation was simply another aspect of his research. Most chilling was the final entry, discovered in March 1975. Primary research phase concluded. Observational data collection ongoing. Secondary phase implementation pending completion of current territorial analysis. What do you think those cryptic symbols on the metal discs were meant to communicate? And why would someone continue documenting their activities even while being hunted? Share your theories in the comments below and subscribe for more investigations into the cases that challenge everything we think we know about human nature.